Hello! It's Friday, September 4th, 2020, unfortunately. How you doing?
Why do you say? Because the year?
Yeah, I can't wait till New Year's Eve.
Well, let's hope it brings in some better, some good cheer.
I saw a funny post on, I don't know what it was, Instagram or Facebook. After New Year's Eve, we're going to never talk about 2020 ever again. It's going to be like,
yeah, it's a wrap.
After
After 2020, say goodbye.
Yep.
It's one of those years that are just,
There was like another one, like a kid about Jonna's age, who's like the picture is like her like raging. And it's like when the clubs open back up and the DJ says, if you're ready for 2020 to be over, make some noise. Yeah. And it's like this.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord, it's so funny. Memes.
Remember the year that all the musicians would die? I think it was 2016. I don't know. It just seemed that was a year where there was a lot of like musicians were dying, musicians that people liked, and it was one of those years, but nothing has been like 2020. So
2020 special.
Yeah, we still got some months to go, and I think it's only just beginning. But on this day in history, September 4th, 1886, a refrain that all of us have probably screamed as kids jumping into a pool, Geronimo formally surrendered to the U.S. forces, and General Nelson Miles accepted the surrender. And basically what's interesting about this is it really marked the end. I mean, I'm sure there were like some outliers as far as like Indians that were still fighting against the U.S., but Geronimo basically, it signaled the end of the Indian Wars, where the Indians were actively trying to resist United States forces, and he did formally surrender. But what a history that guy had, just 30 years fighting against Mexican,
vengeance
government,
killings.
Yeah, U.S. and leader of the Apaches. But eventually the forces, due to technology, guns and everything else, they just they outdid the Indians. And
it was interesting though, because at first the Indians had a one-up on the U.S. troops because they had one-shot rifles,
right,
where they had 100 arrows in their.
And they'd rain them down on the
it was, and they could fire them like a machine gun.
Yeah.
So at first, like these troops, I was watching a documentary about it. What was interesting is in the day and age, the troops had no concept of like fighting an enemy that's different from them.
Sure.
So they just had this excessive hubris. They had this pride. So these troops would go in and get slaughtered.
Yes. Yeah.
Slaughtered. It took a long time for them to
totally different type of warfare.
Yeah.
Than what they were used to in Europe and everything else.
Yeah.
And against the British, French, Spanish, then you're fighting these basically like guerrilla warfare against these like warriors, and it was a complete.
Now you watched The Revenant, right?
Yes.
Have you seen Hostiles?
No, I have not.
I've told you, but I can't stress it enough.
I will. I'll check it out.
It's on Netflix.
Revenant was great.
But in the Revenant, like now, this is an amazing photo that's in Teddy Roosevelt's house in Oyster Bay. In The Revenant, there's a scene where you see the natives on their horses, like on the ridge, when they're coming. It's like the first scene, and Teddy Roosevelt has the original like photo of that in his house.
Talk about a guy that has walked the walk.
Oh yeah.
Teddy Roosevelt was.
It's terrifying.
No
though.
joke.
Like in those days, like if you saw that coming, it meant slaughter.
When I was at the rally that the protesters had in Smithtown, and they were coming towards us in like a formation, when you have an angry mob coming at you, I mean, so I'm not in any way equating this to what it would be like with a bunch of Indian warriors coming.
Don't give them that much credit.
Exactly. I couldn't even imagine what that would have been like. So
the other thing is the punishments they would dish out. I've always been like fascinated by the Comanches. And the Comanches were like the ultimate bandits of the native world. And they would kill Indians, they would kill women, they would kill children, they would do like
they were really warring people, right?
They were. And they were cannibals. They would eat your heart. I mean, they would do sick stuff. And I just find them to be super interesting because they were really hard to take down because they were this like rogue. They didn't really have a home.
They were a very stocky people too, from what I read.
Yeah.
They were very strong, just.
And the other thing is the face paint they would use, the blood and charcoal and the red and the black.
Sure.
And like, you're a U.S. troop. It's 1869, 1870.
Yeah, after the Civil War, the last half.
Everybody
of the
was dressing
1800s.
so proper
Sure.
back then, you
Sure.
know, like everyone wore a three-piece suit, even if you were working the farm. And then you see those guys coming at you on their horses at 50 miles an hour, screaming
Crazy.
and whooping. And like,
Yeah.
one
well,
thing I want to actually touch on, I read this book about this guy
That's what
named-
made the Mongols so effective was the horse riding. So the
Right.
Indians on the open plains coming at you.
and the natives, they say, were like unparalleled. They didn't use saddles. They just...
No, these guys, they grew up on horses. I mean, that was their,
I read this
Amazing.
book about this guy, going back to The Revenant. There, you remember the kid that was in the movie?
Yes.
Well, his name in the movie's Jim Bridger. He was a real guy.
Okay.
And Jim Bridger was a gentleman who came from down south, I believe from St. Louis.
Okay.
And he went out west. He was one of the like original like frontiersmen who kind of like discovered it.
Yeah.
And there's Fort Bridger now where he set up this outpost. But he was respected by natives, by the U.S. government, by just the French, you know, just about everyone. And if anyone wants to like listen or hear something really interesting that doesn't have to do so much with like slaughtering, but has to do with really good history, look up Jim Bridger. He's a really fascinating character. He was there during the Hugh Glass incident.
People like the slaughter. They like the blood, unfortunately. But
Well, he was involved in wars.
Yeah, back then it was inevitable.
Yeah, he was involved in wars, but he was also used by the U.S. government to track, to trailblaze, you know? So you always hear about Lewis and Clark and everything, but Jim Bridger was like the real...
He doesn't gain the notoriety. It's interesting.
Yeah, he was fascinating, and he was there when Glass was mauled by this bear.
That was one of the craziest scenes in that movie. That was
God.
amazing,
But it happened. And if you go to South Dakota to this day, there's a monument. It's this giant grizzly bear that's made out of like sprockets and stuff. It's really crazy.
Right.
And then there's not Jim Bridger, Hugh Glass, like hanging back with his knife out. And that story's amazing. If anyone hasn't read The Revenant, it's pretty cool because it's a little different from the movie.
Yeah, books are always better than the movie.
Yeah, I mean it's what really happened was they left him for dead, and they took his kit. So he didn't have his rifle, he didn't have his flint and steel, and he was like mortally wounded in the old growth forests of South Dakota.
Yeah, at the mercy of the elements,
And he crawled, really crawled 200 miles to find this guy. And what happened was this Fitzgerald joined the U.S. military, and he was stationed at a base, and he went all the way to the base, went to the door, and he told the doorman of the U.S. troops, "I'm here to kill this guy."
Right.
And they said, "Look, I understand your story, but you can't kill an enlisted man." And at that point, he turned around and went home. So he actually never killed the guy. And the moral of the story is revenge is best left in the hands of God. And that's like
that takes an extremely strong person to have that
it's hard to comprehend that.
Yeah, to have that kind of, thought process. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's interesting too. We hear all these stories about the Native Americans and the really sad plight that they've had since those days, and between the disease that was brought upon them and their lack of immunization to it, the life on the reservations, the alcoholism, difficulty blending into society. I mean, they've really had a difficult time in this country. The problem you get nowadays too, though, is when you look at a lot of these reservations, it's very hard. Like on Long Island, for instance, we have some reservations out east where everybody goes. Everybody goes to get the cigarettes and stuff like that because they're cheaper. But now, are they African Americans or are they Native Americans? Because there's no, to me, they just look like black people on this reservation. I don't see anybody that remotely resembles
I think the law is if you're 1/17th Native, you can apply for status.
That's
as
where
indigenous.
I think it. Okay, that's what I had a feeling, because when you look at them, we all know what Native Americans were the original Asians that came over here. That's why they have their
Asian complexion.
Yeah, the hair type,
also
the hair type.
Mexican.
Yes,
depending on your region.
But when you look at them, especially the ones up here, though, when you look at them, And then you look at somebody from Asia, they have a lot of characteristics, not only the eyes, like I said, but the hair, general lack of body hair. Like
Often they didn't have beards.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that when you look at the Asians, especially Southeast Asians, and then you look at Native Americans, there's just a lot of physical similarities. So somehow that look, when you look at the old pictures and the old books, has totally morphed into them looking like they came from the West Indies or they came from Africa.
Yeah.
So that, I guess, is what it is that some of these guys, somebody had the brilliant idea of a way to be able to sell, cigarettes at a cheap price. And
it's kind of disgusting when you think about it. It's like exploiting the peace pipe ideal.
But that's the problem. And you see this with all these movements and all these things with people who are minorities. It's like their case or their fight gets dulled by these people who
latching on.
Right.
Leeching.
And they invade it to make money.
Right. Well, if I was an Indian, I would be pissed. Let me not say Indian, by the way. Native American.
Right.
I apologize.
Yep.
But I would be angry. I would be angry because it like you said, it kind of.
I just find that interesting. Like when you pull in there, it's almost like you're pulling into a bad area in Harlem or something. That's what it looks like. And I'm not trying to generalize.
I would almost call it like an outskirt, like abandoned suburb of Detroit.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, and these, I remember the first time when I was a teenager and I was going to check out the Native Americans on Long Island, and one of my friends.
We're pretty close to them over here, by the way. So watch what you say. They're going to run a raid over here.
Yeah,
and freaking scalp.
Bunch of horses. So, I went there expecting to see like Geronimo or something like that.
Yeah, right. Doesn't exist.
And so we got there, and I said, "All right, cool. When are we getting to the reservation?"
Yeah, where are the natives?
You're on it.
Yeah,
we're here. And it's like Jim's Smoke Shop, and
Smoking Joe's.
Black guy out there smoking a Newport, and I'm like, wait a second, what the? I was expecting to see like a guy with a.
But what's funny is they have all these like not caricatures, but these like sculptures,
depictions of like Native Americans that look nothing like them.
Yeah,
it would be like me and like
the Shinnecocks.
Dr.
Are
J.
different.
This is my relative, Magic Johnson. This is my uncle. Like,
well, that's the
relation.
Poospatuck tribe.
Right.
The Shinnecocks are a little more authentic.
Yeah. Poospatuck stands for
Newport.
Yeah,
it's Newport and native.
Cultural assimilation.
Well, generic Newport now because they can't actually sell name brand cigarettes, which kind of pisses me off.
I don't know. I thought I've seen them out there, and they sell them
but
cheap.
They're not duty
fake,
free
right?
though.
Oh, okay, got it. But yeah, it was just interesting though, because like I said, I went out there and I was expecting, like I said, to see the big Indian with like a peace pipe,
maybe a teepee or two.
We're buying like real tobacco, and you go so. Very interesting.
What's
but
really
it corrupts these movements.
They have a really bad issue over there with robberies, with crime.
Sure.
And it's like you go into like their equivalent of a 7-Eleven, like there's like a gas station there. And there's like a guy with like a gun, they got to really protect themselves because they'll rob themselves, it's crazy.
Well, it's really a bad area.
It is. So I wanted to tell you the story about, I had an experience going there. This is probably about 7 years ago.
Okay.
And I was working out in West Hampton, and I was trying to get cigarettes for cheap. So it was like a Monday, I don't know. And I drive there. It's like 6 o'clock in the afternoon. And I'm seeing like people on quads like doing wheelies. And I knew something was weird. Like it just was too much activity.
Right.
And as I pull up to like the block where you like enter, it was just flooded with people. There were speakers, like my car was like
wow, like a block party.
It was massive, like I've never seen before, and I couldn't drive through. So I would have to creep.
Yeah.
And then like a little kid would run right in front of my car. It was just like it was insane. It was crazy, and so needless to say, I've never seen a party like that before. It was really like. Sure. I kind of wish I was hanging. Like it probably was a good time. And
it's like a Brooklyn house, block
so
party. So
all the stores were closed. They were having a powwow. I'm not even kidding with you. That's like what it was. I asked about it like years later, and then someone told me they have these like parties there. Okay. And they call them powwows.
Okay, cool. Well, of course they're Indian.
They're
Native
natives.
Americans.
Yeah, they got a party.
They have powwows.
Right. They do the peace pipe and all that. So all the stores were closed, but I kept asking around. I'm like, can I get some cigarettes over here or what?
Yeah.
And like there was this one really fat lady, and she was like pissed off. She's like, come to my trailer.
Yeah.
And like she threw me like 3 cartons and charged me like a premium price because they were having their powwow.
Okay.
And I was like, you know what?
Yeah. Right.
Back to Marlboro Lights. I'm
Yeah.
out of here.
Yeah.
It was the last time. But you know, years ago it actually was much nicer. I used to go there in like the early 2000s with Grandpa and everything, and it was a little different. It changed in the past 20 years. It got much more like crowded, and it's
that's
a shame.
it.
There are some places though
people jump on a good thing.
There are some places there though that are run by really nice people. And you find it interesting because, and like there's some, like when you're trying to back out, they'll come outside.
Yeah.
And they'll like.
Yeah, I've never had a problem. Like we're joking with these, you know.
Yeah,
I've
really,
never had an issue. I've gone there plenty of times, but
it's fascinating.
It's just an interesting take on
what it is to be a Native American
in today's
in New
day
York.
and age. And I'm just wondering if it's like that in all the states, because I've never been on a reservation in another state. And I'm just wondering if it's the same type of deal, is due to the fact that you're able to sell these, you know, cigarettes and everything else at a cheap price because of the tax.
I think it's different in like Midwestern
I imagine the Midwest,
states.
I was going to say, has got to be legit.
It is.
Because when I see, you know, I've read a lot of articles in the past.
California has a pretty big...
before the internet was big, you know, you could read, like National Geographic would have, you know, stories about what's going on in the Native American... you know, tribes nowadays.
I know
and they
Minnesota.
Look legit,
I know Minnesota. They have like this, like really. The natives have like a deep connection with wild rice. So I watched this like show one time, and they were going on a trip with this native guy who had these like 2 long chopsticks, and he was on a canoe, and he'd be going through the swamp, and he would have these tools, and he would like smack the reeds, and all the rice would fill up his canoe.
Oh wow! Okay.
It was really cool.
Yeah.
You know. So I think for sure there's
yeah, I mean, like I said, when I look at the tribes in the Midwest, but of course New York is going to be a little
everything. New York and California, man, they're like both like they're like it's all actors.
Disneyland, those 2 states.
Freaks.
So you know,
freaks.
And then we get some other people that I wanted to talk about a little bit today.
Yeah, big shout out to the Smithtown Barber Shop.
Big Jimmy and Artie and
Eddie.
And there's a guy in there. This guy has the best. I don't know if you know the other guy in there. I wanted to bring this up, and the boys at the barber shop will know. The guy that works there, he left for a little while. He went to Israel. I think he said he was trying to find a woman, and
a nice Jewish girl.
Yes. So you know, so he went to Israel, and unfortunately, he said they're too worried about money over there. So he came back to the United States. That man has. I want to shout out to his surgeon. He has the best hair transplant that I've ever seen.
Oh, really?
He left, and I never really noticed his hair, but he came back, and this guy had some head of hair on him, and I said, dude, I never noticed your hair was so like you had it
so
slick.
Nice, yeah.
You know, I was like, holy cow, you know, I was like enamored by this guy's hair, and he goes, it's a transplant. I said, wow. So I think he might have went somewhere but I was.
The Paul Mitchell.
Yeah, so shout out to you, surgeon, brother. That's a pretty nice head of hair. But anyway, these guys, I wanted to, since Fridays we kind of lay back a little bit and we take a break from ranting and raving at all the craziness.
We just had a pretty heavy 20 minutes there dealing with the native tribes.
Yeah. When we talk about my experience as a kid going to barber shops, living in Queens, it was always like Italian guys. Yeah. All the shops in the old days were run by the Italians. And I used to want to be a barber as a young kid because they always had it looked like the Liberace or the Elvis hair, like the pompadour.
Sure.
And they always dressed nice, you know.
Their jackets are perfect.
Yeah, so as a kid, I was like four at the time and 5, and my mother was bringing me for my first few haircuts, and I said, I want to own a barber shop when I'm older. I want to be a barber. So my poor brother, you know, my mother took off for the day. I guess she had plans or something. My parents were young in those days, so my mother went out and told my father, watch the kids. I'll be right back. So my father was off in the other room. We lived in an apartment. We didn't have a lot of space, so my father was off in the other room doing whatever it was he did. And I had this idea where, wow, my brother he was younger than me, but wow, he's finally got a head of hair.
Yeah.
I want to be a barber, so let me cut his hair a little bit. So I took these scissors and I didn't just trim a little bit of his hair. I gave this kid a full-fledged scalping.
Okay.
And my mom came home and she had a heart attack. And the kid's hair looked like he was missing clumps of hair all over. He looked like a sickly dog when it like starts losing patches of hair.
Like mange.
My father, she's screaming at my father said, what the hell happened? Came in, so for years later, when we moved from that apartment into our first house several years later, and we had like a toy chest, inside that toy chest, my mother was still finding pieces of my brother's hair.
God.
But anyway, that was my first...
She must have not liked that.
No, she was not happy
I bet every
about it.
time she found a clump of hair,
it brought it back.
Yeah, PTSD.
So my poor brother had to wear a baseball cap for like the first, year that he had hair. And, that was like, so I always had this interest in being in barbershops because I had wanted to be a barber. But in those days, like I said, they were very, older Italian guys.
It was a gentleman's club, right?
Yes.
Like, in a sense.
Yes. And then in the late 80s, early 90s, it started to change. And the reason it started to change was you had two groups of people who took over barbershops. And it was due to the waves of immigration in the United States, which makes sense because in the early 1900s, you had the Italians,
Irish.
They went to certain jobs. The Irish went to certain jobs. Due to the fall of the Soviet Union, you had all of the Russians coming over. Now, you got to keep in mind when you're talking about the Soviet Union, it's not just Russians. You have people from Uzbekistan, people from the Ukraine, people from Georgia, people from Tajikistan,
Lithuania,
all of Estonia, all the countries, Azerbaijan, Armenia,
I can't even.
which I believe the Kardashians are part Armenian.
Oh,
so,
God. Don't even.
Right. Regardless, it's still, a lot of people today, a lot of their family roots go back to these nations. And during the early 1990s, when the Soviet Union really fell, their economy crashed, they all came over to this country. So you had all the barbershops were starting to be taken over by, they called themselves Russians, but they were really, most of them were from Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, some like all the surrounding little countries, but it was easier to tell Americans, I'm Russian, okay? Mm-hmm. And you also had Spanish. A lot of Dominicans took over because late 80s, early 90s, you got a lot of Spanish that were coming to the East Coast of America. And a lot, so there's a real difference, though, in the types of barbershops when you go to a Spanish barbershop and you go to a Russian barbershop. Yes. Why don't you, I believe one of your friends worked in one that was more like the Spanish style barbershop.
Yeah, it was, wasn't for me.
Well, what's it like in those types of places? And I'll add to it.
It's because a lot of hip hop, a lot of rap, a lot of hanging out. There was a crackhead that used to come in. They would all let him hang, and he was pretty funny. He was kind of like comedic relief.
Sure.
And
I noticed there's no appointments in those types of places. It's not like...
Oh, yeah, there's appointments.
Oh, they do have appointments. Okay.
Hell yeah.
I feel like when they... I noticed when they'd I'd bring your brother in and I went to a Spanish one. I usually go to the Russian ones just because it's more family style if I'm bringing the kids.
Right.
But it seemed like this one barber, it's like every one of his boys was coming in and he would just keep pushing off the regular customers to take his boys.
Well, that's what happens,
right? So,
that's the difference.
Yeah, so I kind of, the music is different, the vibe is, it was just different. But the Russian places, but again, they do great edge ups, they do great hair. I mean, that's not a knock on them. I'm too old to listen to that kind of music.
Who the hell wants to hear?
I'm an old cranky guy. I don't know. So the Russian barbershops, though, are a hoot because it's kind of like disco all the time in those places. Yeah. The way they dress, the way, here's what I
walk in, sometimes you got a little techno going. It's 9:30 in the morning.
Right, and there's boom, boom,
soccer,
boom, and it's some random woman's voice in the background singing, and it's disco. It's almost like Zohan.
It is.
I feel like it's Zohan.
Yeah.
And they have the skinny jeans with the holes in them. Shout out to Big Jimmy.
Yeah.
With the Armani Exchange shirt.
Yep. He's got the leather butcher's
They might be trying out a new faux hawk haircut.
Right.
So maybe Artie. Shout out to Artie. tried, said,
I want to
what?
know
I'm
who
gonna cut
does
Jimmy's
Jimbo's hair.
I don't know. I think it's Artie or it's Ed, but whoever cuts his hair,
Yeah,
nice
two
job,
thumbs
man.
up.
But it's like that, they all have like the faux hawk.
Right. Except my man Artie, though. Artie's got the real
straight up,
classic,
slick back, classic old school haircut. Good job, my man.
Him and his dad, they have the same. They're really
very
cut from the same cloth.
Run a type business. Well, Artie is not from Uzbekistan. He's from Tajikistan, which is rare because most of the barbers, not that makes a difference, but most of the barbers are Jews from Uzbekistan. Jimmy, I believe, is Muslim, so it's a little difference there. But anyway, the whole scene in those places, though, it's like, I like them because it's like they're really trying to adapt to being an American,
right.
What they think an American is. But it's cool because
they
you
wear
know
the
what?
American pins.
Yeah, they, like you walk in there and it's not like I'm walking into like Uzbekistan where I feel like I'm in another country. You walk in, they have the American flag up, and that's like an old school immigrant.
Right.
That's like the Italians. They used to do,
they would do. Yeah.
And
sure.
I gotta say, man, that's
my favorite barber shop that I've ever been to.
You guys get a thumbs up in my book, and all those types of barber shops that trying to adapt to the American way of life.
Yeah.
You guys came to this country. You really it's funny because what they think an American is, it's like the real, like what you see in the movies type of deal. It's not like what the average American is.
They think they're in like small town America.
Yeah, and but they're all decked out, like going to the club and stuff. So always dressed to the nines. They look good.
Which I respect, by the way.
Yeah, but it's like I gotta just say, that's a group of people that, they had a real tough time in their own countries. The economy crashed, and they weren't able to survive and take care of their families. The guy Jimmy is in his early 20s. He's got a wife. He's got a kid. He's works hard, and
every day, and they
just
travel
trying to support his family.
Queens
right.
To Eastern Long
Never
Island.
got a break. Never got any sort of deal. And,
and they're never crying about anything.
When you think of the American dream,
well, Eddie does.
Yeah,
Eddie's a little bit of a crybaby.
Eddie, I really like Eddie.
No, he's hysterical. Eddie. I love him.
Yeah. I wonder if Eddie was like a gangster or KGB in the past.
I think
got
he
the
was.
Scar where,
Right.
It looks like he used to.
He was like an operative.
Yeah. I think he used to have some jobs there that were. But, those are guys that, first of all, I got to say, the barbershop is always jam-packed.
Oh, my God.
But here's the real difference, too, between some of the Spanish shops. And, again, I like the Spanish guys. They're cool guys. But, when I say it's for a younger crowd, it's because people chill out there.
Right, hang out all day.
You could get a haircut, and you could get in there at 1 o'clock. You're lucky you're walking out by 3:30.
Right. It's an
Whereas
all-day
you
event.
walk into Artie's place, Smithtown Barbers, they could have 100 people, they could have 20 people in there.
They crank them out.
You're out of there in 15 minutes.
With a sick cut.
Right. So it's just the type of, it's like come in,
and
sit
they
down,
give you the
cut.
shave.
Yeah.
One time Artie started giving me a massage. I'm like, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah,
But it's like a part of it. He put the towel on my face.
Yeah, they also have this silver thing they put on you sometimes, and I don't know.
Yes. It's like a weird.
I didn't know that was part of the cut, but it was.
Well, also where they come from, they have
it.
these what's the word for that?
Rub and tucks.
A bathhouse.
Russian bathhouses, sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Turkey has a lot of them.
correct.
Yeah.
And they do the eucalyptus on all that. That's great.
Yeah.
I actually did that when I was in Ecuador. We went to this place called Baños.
Yeah.
And it's these pools of volcanic water.
Yeah.
So the water's like milky white.
Yep.
And you go in there and it's supposed to be really good for you. And then I did the whole the spa sort of treat. It was amazing. It really was.
When Eddie kind of earned my respect and really my friendship was when I brought Vincent in there, my son, for those that don't know, who is autistic. Very difficult to do normal things like get a haircut, things like that. It's just I literally have to hold him down into the chair, and it's difficult because he's a big kid now. He's not like a little child. And this guy Eddie took him in the chair, and Ed worked his rear end off, giving Vinny a cut, was dealing with him flailing around and swinging.
And he's
at him.
nice about it.
And he was nice about it. He didn't make me feel uncomfortable. He didn't make Vinny feel uncomfortable. And then he also, I tipped him well for it. I mean, he earned it. And then, but the next time I came in, I just pulled him aside and I said, man, you know what? Thank you for making my son feel like, you know. And he goes, you know what? Your family here. Don't worry. Like, it's like they really appreciate the business.
They respect family.
Yeah.
They respect
and
values.
I got to say, that's where, like, when we talk about immigration and stuff, that's the type of immigration that makes America great.
Yeah.
And I
rather than coming here with this this idea that you're going to hate it right away.
Right.
You know, you got to rage against the machine. These guys came here and kicked ass.
Right. And they had no breaks. They literally came in with whatever they had in their pocket, you know. And then I'm just, again, young people, instead of in the schools being taught about all the bad things and the struggle and the, you know,
the systems inherently have
to get you. Why don't the schools show these businesses, these people that come to this country, they blend in with Americans, they are taxpayers, they're good citizens, they raise children to be good citizens, and that is what America is about.
And they also honor their heritage at the same time.
Exactly, they do. And you know what? It's cool because I used to be a history teacher, so it always amazes them when I say, you're not from Russia, you're from Uzbekistan. You know Uzbekistan?
Right.
They're so happy.
It opens the door.
It opens that door and the lines of communication, and it only took that little thing where from...
Just being aware of where they come.
Yeah, and showing them a little, hey man, you know what, that's cool. Let me learn a little bit about where you're from.
Right.
Instead of them trying to shove it in my,
right. Well,
they know they're here now.
Right.
Where
I come from, this is how we do it. Well, then why'd you leave?
Right. No,
jerk.
They love this country. You said it before when we were talking about this prior. You said they love America. They're appreciative of what this country has given them.
And what I really appreciate is come holiday season, they have the Christmas tree. They got the menorah.
Yes.
They got everything.
Yes.
I think they even do something for Kwanzaa.
Yeah. That's exactly. It's like, if more people were like that.
Yep.
All these problems that
they're a prime example of exactly what me and you talk about.
The American dream.
Yeah. For real. 100%. And they're all great guys. So we wanted to do just like a special shout out to the Smithtown Barber Shop. If you're on Long Island, you want to get a really good haircut, check them out, make an appointment ahead of time.
Good dudes, good cuts. You're
going to walk out of there looking like a new man.
Yeah, and it's just nice when you go into a place, like, keep in mind when you go in, like, these guys are all hard-working family guys. They're just, they came from another country, and it's like they are true like Americans. They, and my hat's off to them, man.
Yeah.
A lot of respect.
Nothing but respect.
Yep.
Big soccer fans.
Huge.
Yep.
Huge soccer fans.
No matter what is going on, unless it's a UFC fight.
Yeah.
You either got a UFC match or you got a soccer match. One or the other. That's it.
Yep. So,
which is cool.
Huge shout out to them. But I just, and again, it's not a knock on the Spanish or the Dominican shops. Those guys, look, if I was a young guy or a teenager or whatever, and I wanted to get like a nice edge up, that's your style. You're more of like a hip hop fan.
And it's fascinating because when I went to Ecuador, those shops they had them.
Yes. Oh, like the
like how it is here.
Oh,
it's
wow.
It's weird.
Yeah.
It's very strange. That's like one of those things that carry over.
Yeah.
It's just how
that
it is.
industry has changed so much, though. The haircut, like when you used to look at the old Italian barber shops to what they are now. It's just really morphed. But
I got into a deep conversation with Artie one time about scissors. And there was a time when there wasn't buzzers.
Right.
So when you would see someone with a really slick haircut, like F. Scott Fitzgerald, he always had like that. That was all done.
That was all done by hand, scissor cut. Bang, bang. Yeah.
That's hard.
Yep.
So, and I noticed, like, the one reason I really like to get my hair cut by Artie is that he does really good scissor work. And there's something about
rare.
It is.
Yeah.
Everywhere you go, it's just they hit you on the top really quick.
Yep. And
he hits every corner of your head.
Yep.
With that scissor and the buzzer, and then like the ultra fine cheese grater thing that they hit you with on the neck. It's amazing. When I
moved out to Long Island, I went to a shop that first opened in 1955. The guy that ran it was an immigrant from Sicily, and it was like one of the true old school Italian barbershops. And this guy stayed in business till he was in his 90s. Now, he was a lot better when I first met him, and he was in his 60s. As he got older and older, his eyesight was going. So, but he kept the shop open. He had other people that would cut hair there. But, like, it was just like stepping back in time when you went in there. It was, it had, like, the old linoleum floors. It had the real old school, like, light bulb, little round light bulbs on there. And the old barber chairs, the apron. They had that Pinot, it's called, like, the gentleman's aftershave.
Whatever, yeah.
That blue liquid where all the combs are in, and it had that spinning thing on the outside of the door.
Did you ever do the research into that spinning?
It has
it's very interesting.
It's something to do with medical or something.
Yeah.
Do you know what it is exactly? I remember that it was.
Keep going for a second. I'm gonna pull it up, and I'm gonna
something to do with what barbers used to actually do. They would actually be like skilled at something. And but yeah, while you look it up,
the look of the barber pole is linked to bloodletting.
Yes,
with red representing blood and white representing the bandages used to stem the bleeding.
Yes, I knew it had to do with
the pole itself is said to symbolize the stick that a patient squeezed to make the veins in his arm stand out more prominently to produce blood.
Wow,
weird.
Yeah, morbid.
And it's such like an old timey thing. You look at it, ooh, barbershop, haircut, powder, you know, but it. Really,
I knew
it
had
surgery.
to do something medical because I remember reading it years ago.
Really interesting.
But that thing when I was a kid, it used to fascinate me. Like how they all were all at barbershops.
It's beautiful.
In Queens, they used to have all the barbershops had them. You don't see them as much. I think they do have one in Smithtown.
Totally.
But when I was a kid, they would always be on the outside of the barbershops. But
barbershops are a real institution. I think it's something that, even females, they go to their salons.
Yeah.
They have like a similar experience. Yes. It just costs like 500 times more.
Exactly.
But, which is a shame, by the way. A lot of things, it's going to be, not to get off topic, but a lot of things that females have to do
cost a lot more.
Cost way more.
Yes.
Clothing, shoes, feminine products.
Yeah.
I don't like that. Like, it kind of pisses me off.
Well, look at when they get married. When you're paying for a wedding dress versus the tuxedo.
Right.
Thousands of dollars difference, it's insane.
That goes back a long ways, too, because I think a lot of those traditions were at a time when women didn't work as much, and they knew that they could hit the man for big bucks. But now it's, like, ridiculous, like, it's not fair.
Yeah, but I remember,
But at a female salon, you get a lot more.
Yes, they do a lot, but it's very, the prices are astronomical, But that is, like you said, they're really institutions. And you see, like, when women go to get their hair done, it's almost like going to a bar. They get to catch up with friends.
Yeah, they talk, they get their nails done, this and that.
And that's the same for guys. When they go in, it's always like whenever I would go into the place we were talking about.
It's always comedy.
Joke time, you know, and it's like everybody busting on each other. And,
I know when I go in, Jimbo always goes, "Oh, Thomas the Train, where are you?"
Yeah. It's always
sometimes I go missing for a while, but it's the barber shop is a real.
They were worried at first. I think they thought I was a gangster, so they would always sit me down and have serious talks with me.
Right.
Eddie thinks, were you a gangster or something?
Well, this goes back to Eddie being an operative because he's very observant.
Yeah, I got my eye on Eddie. But these are great guys, man. These are great guys. When you talk about, like I said,
love when they have this mural of Eddie in this barber shop. Now, if you ever go in there, you're going to see it right away. You can't miss it. And he's getting his hair cut by, I believe his name's Alex.
Yes,
I think he's another one of the owners, right?
He was the original owner.
But Eddie's kind of a shorty, and when you look at the picture, they really highlight on his height because his feet are dangling.
Oh my God!
It's they're brutal with this guy. What the hell is that?
But that's the way it is. Funny. It's the sense of humor in there. But
it's endless.
But again, it's just we always talk about bad things or something not bad, but things that are going on in the news that upset us. It's nice sometimes to see that the American dream is still alive and well, and that's what makes this country. People come here for opportunity.
Right.
There's opportunity for everybody, regardless of color, regardless of religion, sexual orientation. This country provides more opportunity to be successful than any other country in the world.
And a lot of economic relief if you need it.
Look, there's no perfect world, but you don't have to deal with the same type of law enforcement in Mexico, for instance, where you're bribing everybody and you got, there's a lot of, for all the faults and the flaws and the bad things that go on in this country, sometimes you just got to say, thank God that I was, for me, you know what? I do have privilege. I was born in America. That's my privilege.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I have privilege because I'm a white in America. I feel when I go around the world, I have privilege because I was born in America.
Yeah.
And I don't have to immigrate there to get opportunity. I was born into, look, I went to school, I became a teacher. Then I ended up opening my own business from scratch.
Yep.
And thank God that I was in this country where I had an opportunity to do it. And,
It's me in France, like I'm like a kind of a Francophile.
Uh-huh.
And
which I find interesting. I can't.
Yeah, I know you don't like it. But
I didn't say I don't like it.
It's nothing like it's.
It's interesting. Well, you're a chef, so of course you're gonna like.
To me, it's like religious.
Yeah. No, I get it.
But what I find really interesting is,
Mm-hmm.
okay, you have France, you have Paris, Lyon, all these places,
Yep.
Marseille, best chefs in the world, best restaurants in the world. But you know where they really go to make it? New York.
Yep.
So it's like, come
Yep.
on. I mean, and that's true in
Right.
any industry.
Sometimes you have to just, and this goes for the young people. Trust me, you people that are out in the streets, you guys have no clue. If you were pulling this crap somewhere else, what would be happening to you? So sometimes you just got to put your hands together and say, thank God I'm an American. And
Right,
thank
look
God
at
I
the
was
blessings
born in
you
this
have.
country. Right. And again,
It's always like,
That's why we
this is
talked
my
about these
biggest
barbers.
issue, is like I'm someone and you're someone
Mm-hmm.
who every day when I wake up, as bad as things might be,
Yep.
I always say to myself, thank God for my home, thank God for my family,
Yeah.
thank God for the blessings
Could
that I
always be
have.
worse.
When I see these people out there, all I hear is me,
Yeah.
want,
Right.
need,
Yep.
don't have,
Right.
have.
And it's your fault.
And it's my fault
Right.
or your fault.
Yep.
And what's funny is, you know what? I don't even want to get all crazy.
You know what?
It's a happy
Right.
day.
Maybe if they just said thank you.
Right.
And you start to look at life that way, start to look at life as like, you know what I do truthfully? When something happens bad and it's like, I'll look at somebody else that has a worse situation than me.
Right.
And say, you know what?
Thank God.
Thank God. And there are people like, you know what? I have a son that's autistic. I could have wallowed in this. Why me? Why did my
we're
kid?
proud of him. We love him.
Right.
And we're
But
thankful he's here.
I've worked in a school where there were kids that had a much more difficult time than my
yeah.
son did, and I said, "Wow!" And it just made me think, like, Vinny, get up, start moving your, and that's
And he does.
and that's why your mother even treats him the same as she treats the other kids. But it just start being thankful sometimes,
Right.
and start appreciating what you have rather than what you don't have or what you think is being held out against you. Because there's a lot of opportunities, and if you started to look for them, take advantage of them, your life would change very quickly. And so, on that note,
It's a
you
big
can
perspective
finish
thing.
off.
It's a perspective issue.
Yep.
And everyone has a different point of view.
Yep.
And the problem is that there's a lot of people out there who are self-serving, narcissistic,
Yep.
and they always want more. They're never satisfied at any point, and that's a problem.
Yep.
And so that's what we deal with. But a quick update on the local patchogue bar, the Clifton.
Yes.
The state is now launching an investigation.
Can you just summarize for people that don't know about the Clifton? What is it
Okay.
this bar is doing?
So the Clifton has always been like a rather patriotic type of bar,
Okay.
you could say.
Got it.
Very local.
Mm-hmm.
It's a staple of the Patchogue Main Street. If
Right.
you're not into the nonsense that happens on Main Street,
Yeah.
you go to the Clifton and you
Yep.
have a good old time. It's like a
Okay.
pub,
Right.
So what they were doing was they were taking now context.
Mm-hmm.
They were trying. What they did, they succeeded because what they were trying to do is bring light to the amount of crime that's occurring in Chicago and New York.
Okay.
And it made national headlines.
Mhm.
So they actually did what they wanted to do.
Right. Yep.
What they were doing is they were taking bets, placing wagers on where there was going to be the most shootings.
New York
Chicago or New York.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, somebody saw it, made a huge stink about it.
Yeah. Mhm.
Now Governor Meatball's launching a full-scale Gestapo investigation as to,
Right.
was this legal?
Yeah.
And but
Just
Look.
let's go break further balls on a small business. What can we do? Yeah.
Right. Was this gambling legal?
Yeah,
Is this
I know.
come on,
He doesn't
dude,
have enough
really?
to worry about.
Right.
You know?
Worry about the 11,000
Yeah.
senior citizens you killed.
Right.
You clown.
Or worry about everybody that you went on false pretenses about this disease.
Worry
This-
about the
this
multi-million
sickness.
dollar restaurants that are
Right.
moving, going
Yeah.
back to wherever they
Yep.
came from originally.
Instead of
fool.
some tiny bar.
Right. So literally a tiny bar.
Micromanaging because you're not taking care of the big issues.
They refuse. They are Blue Lives Matter.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and they refuse to be walked on. And what's funny is they're like directly across the street, like I said, from like a kind of dodgy like apartment building, you
Gotcha.
could say. So it's amazing, and I guess there's probably going to be, you know. So anyway, the owner issued an apology now, which kind of I'm like, I don't, what are you apologizing
Right.
for? We got nothing to apologize.
That's when
Fight
they
your
start
case.
to descend on you when you
Right.
apologize. You don't have nothing to apologize for.
Right.
You know?
You were trying to raise awareness for
Right.
something that is
Right.
ridiculous.
Right. State what you're doing.
And own it.
Right. And explain it.
Right.
And then say, you know.
And remember, there's a lot of people who got your back.
Yeah. Yeah. Believe me.
A
More
lot of
people
people.
feel like you do than you know. So.
And I think actually it was a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
I understand it's a grim subject matter.
There's always going to be a gray area.
But the
with
first thing you heard was this one. It's racially
I know.
insensitive.
I know.
Get
Well,
the hell out of here.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, like, please, give me a break.
I know.
So anyway, much love to the Smithtown Barber Shop. With that said, Jimmy, Artie, Eddie.
True Americans.
True Americans, true patriots, and if you want to get a great haircut, you know where to go. Make sure you call ahead, schedule an appointment, and much love and support to the local Patchogue Barber.
Better get
Clifton.
free cuts for this plug, boys. But it wasn't. They don't even know that we're doing it. It's just something that we respect. You know, it's nice to be able to, just.
It's also a
bring
barber
to
shop
light.
that your whole family uses.
Yeah.
Coincidentally.
And I just wanted to bring to light that there are these success stories in this country, and for young people that are looking at some grim pictures on the news, trust me, the American dream is alive and well. You're born into the best country in the world. If you just apply yourself, say thank you for your blessings, and stay positive, you'll get ahead in this country.
Absolutely. With that, happy Friday.
Have a great weekend.
Yeah, we'll be back with you guys
Monday.
soon. Monday. And we got some surprises coming soon, hopefully. So we'll see. Could be good stuff. Have a good weekend. And also,
Yep.
happy Labor Day.
Happy Labor Day, everybody.
All right. Bye-bye.